Very good morning to everyone. As part of Compute Continuous Improvement, we are now going to update our application to the next level. At present, we are able to store only one invoice in our record, in our XML database right now. So the moment we store a new invoice, automatically the old invoice is replaced. That is how the current implementation is. Let me show you the code so that you will understand what will happen in that one. So first of all, what we are doing here is the moment we click the sales, that is save button, we come here and create a sales XML dot. We are creating a XML writer, which is going to create the file sales.xml. If there is an sales.xml files already available in the hot disk, what will happen? It will be replaced. Right now, it will be replaced and the current invoice detail will be stored. That is how the current implementation is. So from this, what we come to know is we are able to store only one invoice using our application. Invoice that we are currently billing, that can be stored. But when I in a grocery shop or some shop, whatever that we sell, we won't store only one invoice. We have to store all the invoice right now. Then only the computer system will be very much helpful to us so that we can revisit the history of our invoice. Right. That provision is not there in our application. Let me demonstrate that is not there, and then I will explain you how to implement that in our application. Using the same XML database, we can achieve it. It is not a big deal. Let me initially demonstrate to you like that. Demonstrate to you that it is not storing all the invoices that we create in our application. Okay, now let me start that. Okay, so now the application is running. So here I am going to I include the customer mobile number and to include the customer detail. It's just a dummy. It doesn't have any code behind it. Other than that, whatever that we had before, that is what available now. So let me create a invoice now. So and it is I'm getting 25 out of 25 of them, and I just add that. So it is added. After that, I am going for Suji. Interesting. Okay, sorry. I think I am doing it in a wrong place. So we have this one. We have a invoice which is total amount of that invoice is 1895 right now. Let me save that. It is saved now. If I go and investigate the invoice in the respective folder, for that I go here and then this is mock version 2. Here I have bin debug. Inside that I have a sales XML. Let me open that sales XML in Notepad. Right. So I have that one, right? I have the record for the soap and then Suji, and both of them are placed inside the invoice tag, and respective invoice number and dates are stored. So this is great. The next step is, if I store another invoice, what will happen? Let us do that. As of now, in our current application, if you want to store a new invoice, you have to rerun the application. That is how it is. You cannot create a new invoice in the current run or current run itself, because the invoice number is auto generated. That will be used as long as you are running the application. in order to create a new invoice number, there is no provision. That is the deal. That is a challenge now, right? So what I am doing, I am just stopping the application now. See, when we stop the application, but the XML file that we store, no, that is there still in the hard disk. Right. So again, I rerun the application. This time I go for Chocos, and then it is, I am getting 5 of them. And what other items we have? Sorry, we have books. Okay, let me buy some books now. Two of them I am buying. Now we have the invoice value is 795. So now I store that the invoice is stored now. Let us go and investigate again what happens to that sales.xml. If that is as of in a usual billing application, they have to store this in a new invoice, right? But it is not the case. It should be a new record, but it is replacing the existing record, right? So yes, the existing invoice is replaced with a new one, right? But this is not a right way of doing thing. So we should have all invoices that we create, right? No, that should be stored in an XML or in the database. That is how usually a billing application used to work. How to achieve that one? For that, I have done a homework to achieve it. So I'm going to demonstrate that one for you today. In that, first thing is, as part of this improvement, and that is the improvement that we are going to do now. Also, we are going to display when we run our application, when we open our application, it used to display the previous some 5 or 6 invoices. That means latest invoices that we created, so that it is possible for us to reprint them, and sometimes we may update those invoices that we build. For that, it will be helpful right now. So we are going to have a invoice history in our application, which is going to be displayed in a list box, so that we can pick the invoice that we want to revisit, right? Then we are also going to group the controls. As of now, the controls are that is kept together. So we have to separate them in such a way that some of them are related to the invoice. Those control will be under invoice details, and then some of them are related to items, so that will be under the item details group. Then finally, we are going to bring a new group called customer details, that is going to hold the customer details like their mobile number, name, address, something like that, right? So that grouping also going to be done. So these are the two improvements that we are going to do today. To do that, let me complete the GUI part first, and then we will move forward to the next level, right? So for that, I stop the application again. Right. So after that, I go to billing. In billing, we are going to. Okay, so we discussed one more challenge as well. We are unable to create a new invoice now. So when we are running our application, when we want to, after completing a first invoice, when we want to create another invoice, there is no provision in our application now. That we are also going to bring that one. We are going to bring a new button, so that user can create by clicking on that, he can create a new invoice. So that provision also going to be there. So first thing is grouping of controls. So this is something related to the customer. So I just move that to customer part. So we have to expand our GUI to some level. Then invoice number, I'm going to bring this date invoice. I'm going to rename this as invoice date. This can be in the first level itself. That would be more appropriate. We can change that to right. We have an invoice number, right? Then we can bring them on the left side of this one, and I move. Then in center, we can keep the item details, item name, quantity, right? We are to show, right? So this is item detail, right? This is invoice detail. So when we want to group controls, we have option for what do you say? Uh, to group controls, we have a group box in C Sharp. Let me bring group box. Mhm. So I change this to invoice details. And we have a controls or behind the scene. So let them pin this to back. And we can bring them. And further reduce this because this is not very useful. Right? It makes sense. Similar way, we have another detail here, which is related to item. Right? So we have item details here. Finally, we have a customer detail. So we are bringing invoice history now, a new label. And then we bring a next box also here. So now we have to group the buttons as well, like these are buttons related to item details now. So just update, delete. Right. Then with respect to this invoice, we bring this because it is related to the invoice. Right. We keep them in a same level, that would be very much right. We also going to bring a new button. This button is called as new. Right. So and still we have some sort of, because here it is not fit into that group. I think if we have a invoice group little bit bigger, little bit wider, that will be helpful, so that I am just moving all these controls to right side a little bit. Right. And I expand the detail, then right. I hope now this will work. The same one, right? But we have to make this new little bit bigger to match the existing buttons. Okay, brilliant. So I believe we are done with that. Maybe if I center this to a little bit, that would be great. Mm. Right. So this we have to name them. So this is like, this is called as INV list box. It's a history list box. We have a new button, right? Let me name that as new button. Okay. So first thing is we have to store all the invoices that we, all invoices that we generate now, that should be stored in the database. That doesn't happen now, right? To address that, what we are going to do, we have to write a code, right? That the current code doesn't support that one. For that, what I am going to do, but current code also needed, because when there is no So we have to, the current code also important because that is when there is no sales file, sales.xml, to create the very first invoice, we need the current code. So how we are going to address that one? Let me show you, let me discuss the implementation. I have a sample, that is code that I have tried already before coming to this demonstration. So let us go here, and then this is our current code. All right, this is my improved code. So here what we do, we check whether there is a file exist, sales.xml. If that is there, then we have, then if that is there means there is only one invoice, right? In the same invoice file, same XML file, we are going to invoice the additional invoices, right? So the upcoming invoices, right? For that, what I am doing, I am just check that file is there. If it is there, I create a element, XML element. It is like a node actually, but in which I am creating? I am creating that in the document pointed by sales.xdoc. So if that is the case, there should be a sales.xdoc declaration, right? Now that is done here. In the beginning, we are doing right sales.xdoc. That means in the constructor itself, sales.xdoc as a new XML document. That means we are pointing that to the new XML document. In that XML document, we load sales XML, which is already there. Right. From my view, even we no need to have this here. I believe we can have that there. So let us do that in step. First, XML document sales.x. Initially, in the declaration, it is pointing to null. Then we are pointing to the XML document that we are discussing. Right. So let me do that now. So I just to copy, declare this one, and I bring that to our code. This is declaration. We just declare an XML document. Then we have to point the document. From my view, we no need to point it in the constructor, because when we save it, only then we are going to look that file. So I am going to place that in a different place, like copy this and come back to the, when we save it, only then we need that one, no? All right. So here I am going to place. So what we do, like if they are checking right, let me copy paste that code as well. So this is, yeah, here it is. So if sales.xml is available in the file, then you load it, but it is throwing error because we have to include a library system.io for to check the path and other stuff. So let me just put that in a effect, otherwise it will throw errors. Right. So I come here and I include using system.io. So that is included. The things are ready now. All right. If it is exist, we load that file. If it is exist, we load that file. If it is not exist, we are going to create the file. If there is no sales document, sales.xml, we have to create that one right now. For that, our previous code that we have now, that is really needed for us. Okay, brilliant. So now when we load that one, after that, what we are doing, we are creating the series of XML node to include the new invoice, to store the current invoice without disturbing the existing invoice details in that sales.xml, right? For that, we have this code XML node INV. So that means invoice is a node that we are creating, in which we are creating sales.xdoc. Sales.xdoc is pointing what? It is pointing our sales.xml, right? So we create a element, we create a tag or element in that one, in that XML file called invoice. After that, we create another XML node called invoice number. So in that same XML, we are creating that new tag called invoice number. Inside that, what we do, invoice number dot inner text. That means the content of the tag going to have, that is, we are filling the content of the tag with invoice number that is currently available in the invoice label, invoice number label. So the current invoice number will be stored in that one, right now, in that tag. After that, we append that invoice number tag. We are place that tag inside the invoice tag. So invoice number tag will be inside invoice tag. That is what inv.append child invoice number, right? After doing it, we create another XML node called date. Then we fill the current date. That means the date in the application as an inner content. Then we append that invoice date child to invoice tag. So within invoice tag, we used to have invoice number tag with the latest invoice number, date tag with the current date, right? Then we have we are creating another XML node called items. That means the collection of item, right? Items. After that, we go for our data grid view. That means data table. The data tables contain the current item details, right? Now, all item details are available in that data table. That's why we run a loop, because it is having more than one record. So we run a loop. Rider equal, for that I am using rider variable, rider less than dt rows.count, rider plus plus. Inside that, what we create a again an XML node called item with a tag item. Then we create a series of tags like a name, and then for name tag, we are getting the name, item name from the data table row, right? Now, each row used to have an item name. So we are getting that item name and fill that as an inner text. Then we write what we do. We put that item name inside the item tag. So the name will come inside the item. And then we are creating a rate tag, and then we fill the current rate from the table, and then we append that to again item. So like that, we do it for quantity. After doing it, we get all these item detail inside a item tag, right? Up to amount, right? So after doing it, what we do? We put the item tag inside the items tag. So that is how the invoice detail structure is in our XML file. Right now, when I show you the XML files, that's how it is. Like inside the invoice, we have invoice number and date. Inside that, we have a tag called item. Inside item, we have a tag called item. Inside item, we have a details of item, right? So every row that contains the item details will be placed inside an item tag, so that we have all item details, right? Now, right. So sorry. Right. So finally, we append these items to invoice tag. We keep all the items inside the invoice tag. That is how the structure also, right? So here we have all items will be kept in the item tag that will be kept inside the invoice tag. So, right? Then at the end, we save that, we add that invoice tag to the Excel stock. We are adding that to the root element of document element. That means the root element of, we keep that invoice tag inside the root tag, right? Finally, we save the document. When we do that, we will get something like we will have the invoice detail inserted into that invoice detail is kept inside the XML document, sales document. Let us see how that works. Let me copy this code completely and bring it to our implementation. Right. Brilliant. So now I did that. Let me check whether this piece of code works first, then we will proceed for the next. Right? So the invoice tray is now empty. So I go here and I create a new invoice. I'm buying one Choco. Right, my invoice is done. So I'm going to store this invoice. Right, let me click save now. After saving it, let me go and investigate what my file contains now. See here. So this is our first invoice. This is our second invoice. So we have all the invoices. Without disturbing the old invoice, we have a new invoice. I believe 30 is our new invoice, right? Now, Chacos and books we bought. So that is there here, right? If I'm not wrong. Yes. 158. Sorry, this one. Suji and the Chacos. This one. So it is there. So all the invoices, without disturbing old invoice, we have included the new invoice in that XML file. So now it is something similar to the other billing application. The next step is sometimes we want to revisit our invoices. We want to see some latest invoices, what they are. There should be a way to track them, right? Now, there should be a track them, right? For that, we have a list of, we want to list the some 5 or 6 latest invoices in this list box. How to do that? For that, we have an option in C# to load entire XML database to a data set, and then we can, from that data set, we can retrieve the detail. Let me show you the implementation. I have already did the homework. Let me show you the code, and then we will proceed to implement the same in our thing. At present, our invoice list box is empty. So let me show you the code. See, this, for that I have a function. I have written a function called invoice update history. What this invoice update history does, it initially clear the list box. If something is there, old items are there in the list box, we have to clear them. And then we also clear the data set. I think I have declared a data set at the top, right here. Data set, DSS new data set. Right now, we clear the data set. After that, I read the sales XML from the hard disk to the data disk. That is possible in C#. So after reading entire XML file to the data set, after that, what we do, I don't think it is needed here. I think we have done it in a different place now. That is kept here. From my view, it is not needed. We are already having the details in the data set. So data set is the one which is going to be used here, right? So in that data set, what I am doing, I am picking the invoice table because the data set will load the XML contents into table. I use a rider variable, rider less than number of invoice count. That means I count total number of invoice tag that I have in the XML after I reading it to data set. And what I do from that, I just pick the invoice number alone. How I do that? Invoice history list. That means I have a name for that list box. I add the item to that list box from the data set, from the table invoice. From that invoice table, I only pick the invoice number so that the entire invoice details, that invoice number that I have in my XML file will come to the list box so that I will get a latest invoice detail right now. So let me copy this function from here and let me bring it. Okay. Okay, now I copy that invoice history function. I bring that to my application now. I can place it somewhere. Where we have to place, I think it is a function. No, I can place that any location, but where to call that? I think it is showing some sort of error because I didn't declare the data set in this application. I also declare I don't have, maybe I may have a different names for a list. That's why it is doing like that. So let me fix them first. So I come here and then I create data set ds is equivalent to new data set. Right. After doing it, so that is solved. And then the history, right? No, maybe I may have a different name in this one. So I want to use the same name here. I bring to right. So let me replace the list box name. Right, that is also fixed. Now things are going fine. So, but we created a function, we didn't call it. Where to call that? We can call that in a two places. One thing is like when we initially invoke the application right now, in that time, existing invoice detail can be populated, right? What are the other place? When we press the new button, because old invoices are over, we are going for a new invoice so that the current invoice should go to that one, right? So let me place that here. Only then the current invoice will be appear in the history, right? So I did that. Done. What is next? When we run the application, we will get that one. When we click the new button, also we will up that list box invoice history will be updated. Right. So I think let us check that up to that piece of code is working now, or we need any fix for that. See, my latest two invoices are displaying. Right, they are coming to the table now. So let me create new invoice, that is 45. So for that, I'm going to create a new invoice. Let me check whether that is appearing there. I just buy only one soap. Right, then I just add that. Then I save that. it is not coming right now. When we save, it is not coming. Maybe I think we have not called that function, right? So it may be stored there. Okay, after doing it, let me click a new one. When I click new, in that time, see, I think it is stored 2 times. That record has been stored 2 times. That we have to, because we have to store the invoices only one time. That we can address. That is a bug in our application. That is not a, but anyhow, it is doing the job. So it is storing the invoice details to the XML file, and it is also updating. But when we refresh, when we save it, in that time we should not show it here, because when we show it like that, so the new details that we are, after that also we may continue to add some more items. So when we click save, it is not displaying the invoice details. No, that is perfect. That is not an issue. That is correct behavior only. Only when we click new, it should display that one. The old invoice details should appear here. But when we click new, we should generate a new invoice number. Otherwise, it will go and replace in the old one, right? Now, so that is the reason. That's why we are now getting these two invoices. What I do, I will go to the sales file, sales XML, and just remove the duplicate of that. This duplicate, why this duplicate happens, I know the reason for that. Let me address it first. The moment we create new button, we have to create a new invoice number, right? As we are keeping that old number as such, it is showing the error. For that, what we do, we can have, from my view, I can put this in a new function, void gen new invoice number is a function. Inside that function, I have this text, shift end. Right. So just I cut that. I bring it to this one. I call this gen invoice number function here. Right. So where else we can call this? We can call this in where the moment we click the new, so that this problem that we get, no, that won't happen. Right. That's all. I think it sounds great. Right. We are having, this is 58. Let me put in another one. Another new invoice, Shuji. I buy 10 kg of that. I add that to this. I save the invoice. The invoice is done. I want to go for a new one. I get the new one. At the same time, I get the new invoice number as well. So this is perfect. There won't be any overlapping now. That means a duplicate now. Brilliant. So when we go for a new one, when we get the new number, this table should be cleared. The field should be cleared. That doesn't happen now. For that, what I am going to do, the moment we click near, I think we have a function dot clear field, no? I believe we have a function called clear fields. I'm going to call that one. Clear fields, right? Right now, we have a clear field function. We can call that function in our moment we click new. We can call that. And the problem with this function is it doesn't clear total text box that we have here. So what I do, I just include when you clear field, I think it is not the right way. Sometimes we clear. You should not clear that one. Okay, let me come here and go. Let me come here and stop the application, copy the name of the text box name. Right. We can clear that because we are going for new invoice, and that time the total should not be the old one. One another thing is, when you create new, our existing existing data table that we have, no, that should be replaced to the new one. Right. Let me check that as part of the code. This is the thing that I tried now. This is my homework, right? So what we do, we are adding the existing data table to the data state and we create a new data table, right? And we create the data grid views contents as well, right? No. So, right. After that, these two steps also we have to bring. I hope the things are done now. Even the new button is doing fine. Right. So we have, I think now the things are ready. The stage is set. Let us try that is working now. So we have latest invoice details, and then we have a grouping of fields in a very well manner. And then we go for a new invoice. We are going to create a new invoice now. Right. Then we save it and then we go for a new one. Right. It is appearing in the list. That's all. So we also have all the details stored in the XML database too. Right. All invoice details. So this is how we have to implement the that is without disturbing the existing record, how to insert the new record that we learned today. Let me sum up the point that we learned today. First thing is we have grouped the GUI into different things like invoice detail, item detail, and customer detail like that. After that, we have we have bring the invoice history. We bring all the invoice history to the GUI, the recent history, and then we stored the invoice, all the invoices that we do using our application in the database. For that we worked, and then we have implemented the new invoice that was not there before. We have done it now, so we can create a same new that is multiple invoice when we run the application, right? Now, okay, team. That's all for today. Let me come up with more detail in upcoming session. Thank you. Thank you for watching.